Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. In today's video we're going to be going over the latest rendition of Ether ranking. If you don't know what Ether ranking is, it is a ranking made by Shocker Ether. Their stuff will be down below. They update this every single week and it is an ELO based ranking. So in today's video we're going to go over the most recent one as well as a couple ones that we missed just to see how the meta's been progressing. So this was the initial list that we looked at. You have Mkleo at first and then Bloom Forever at 25th, and most of the players on this list are going to be here the entire time. Just some placements will be shaped and there will be a couple new additions as well as some people leaving the list. Next weekend, it's also pretty typical, some bigger changes in the top 10. Riddles and T are moved, Sonics and Proto Bonham are moved, but there's nothing super crazy. There's a little bit of shifts, 16 to 25 area, but nothing like super drastic. Then the next week, you have Spargo at first, which is a pretty big deal. It's not by a lot, it's only by 5 points, but still, having Spargo at first is pretty huge, as well as Mia being moved into the top 10. That's another big one. Mia's a pretty hard player to rank just because of how wonky his season has been, but he had some really strong tournaments getting him that 9th place there. Then he had Proto Bonham all the way to 12. But for the next week, he's going to be right back at 6 here. This is probably because of Summit. That would be my guess. But you have Spargo first, Aquila second, Mkleo third. Now, so Mkleo, he keeps falling down and down and down. Me is staying at 10. Shootone being outside the top 10 now. And then this list, basically nothing changes. You have Mutace and Shootone shifting, and that's really all I could see. Maybe there's another one I'm just obviously missing, but from what I could tell, that's the big difference. And then finally you have Spargo, Aquila, and now Tweak in third, Mkleo falling all the way to 4th place, which is a pretty big deal. You have Sonics moving up to 7th, Mia staying top 10, Shootone falling out of top 10 still. So there's a lot of little shifts here. I'd say the biggest things that we are going to be caring about, though, is the top 4, just because the kind of 6 to 15, even 20-ish area is kind of mucky. You don't really know where's where. Top 4 is kind of set in stone. Then I think 5th is set in stone. So they're kind of all interchangeable within those tiers. So we're mainly focused on these ones, at least for the first couple weeks. Now starting with our current list, our first player being Ken at 25th. His main performance booster is going to be from Maysuma, but he does have a nice Kagadibi as well. Both of those are tournaments to consider. Everything else outside of that isn't amazing. Nothing super terrible. It is the last 6-month period as well. So for what I'm going to be talking about, we're mainly going to be focusing on 2023. But this ranking is the last 6 months, so there's a lot of players that might be a little bit higher just because they had a really strong end to the year in 2022 or a really strong start to the year in 2023. But DeBuzz is not one of those players, though he is still incredibly consistent. His only real underperformance is Collision, which wasn't super great, got 33rd there, but he is 13th at Genesis, 9th place at Let's Make Big Moves. Before that, he is 9th place at Scuff World Tour, a 4th place at Apex. So DeBuzz doesn't have a major top 8 yet this year, but he's also only been to 3 majors, and 2 of them he was incredibly close, so 24th for him is super justified. You have Apollo Kage at 23rd, who has a top 8 at Summit this year, as well as top 8 at Main Stage before. Apollo Kage is just a demon. He's been doing well at basically every tournament he goes to, aside from Genesis. Genesis was a little bit rough for him, but he had a really good Let's Make Big Moves. He had a really good Collision. Obviously, Summit was incredible, getting Mkleo and Glucini wins. I cannot understate how important that is. So, Apollo Kage 23rd makes a lot of sense as well. You have Kameme, who hasn't had a ton of tournaments under his belt. I'd say his best one's probably going to be Subageki, at least in 2023. I really want to see more of him this year because, he has some real life stuff probably. I think he just had a kid recently, so that's probably going to be a big factor. Why he's stepping away, which is, of course, justified. But if we see him getting back into the swing of things, I imagine he can go much higher and then finally secure that elusive major win that he hasn't been able to get post-quarantine. He got one right at the start of the game, but not quite with Sora yet. But speaking of major winner, you got SkyJ, not because he hasn't won one or because he has won one, but because he's going to probably very soon. At the level that he's been playing and improving, SkyJ's probably going to win a major with Incineroar, which is crazy. He is so talented. Obviously, that collision run is what everyone's kind of knowing him for at this point, but he also has an amazing summer run getting 5th place there, and he has been farming regionals, and there hasn't been a ton of majors yet this year, so to be farming regionals, that's definitely going to get you some points. As you can see, him and Kameme literally have the exact same score. Apollo Kage only one behind. The level of play right now at the top is incredibly close, so a lot of these slots are kind of interchangeable, but everyone in this 25 to 21 range definitely deserving to be up here, if not higher. Our 20th player is going to be Bloom Forever. Now, Bloom does not have a major yet this year. He just kind of has been farming regionals, and he has been winning essentially everything he's going to. It's just nothing super big, so I think there's a chance he can go to Battle of BC if he gets voted into the crew battle. So if that happens, go vote for Bloom so that can happen. We could see him at a major for the first time we've seen him at a major since Double Down in NA, where he got 13th place, and he's only gotten way, way better since then. I think he could win the entire thing if he comes down. Honestly, he is only less low, at 20. That's really low for Bloom, it's only because he hasn't been to anything. If he was going to more events, he would be much higher. You have Yoshidora as well, who also hasn't been to a ton of events. He does have a really strong Umaboro, though, and a really good Kagaribi. Outside of that, nothing super crazy, but those two performances are definitely helping him out a lot. Then you have Lima at 18. Again, I think Bloom is the best Bayonetta player in the world, but I also think Bloom is a top 10 player in the world. Lima being 18, I think he is deserving of that spot. He has a pretty rough Let's Make Big Boost, but that collision run is really, really strong, as well as him doing very well at regionals. And he's just such an impressive player to watch. When you watch Lima play the game, he just looks better than most of the people he's going against. That camping style Bayonetta is super impressive, and I imagine he keeps finding success with it because it looks really, really hard to deal with. You have Osimo at 17th, who's had a bunch of really good runs this year. The main one's going to be Kagaribi, though, where you got second place there, as well as an Akla win. That is a huge win to have, and he's probably going to get more, probably going to win a major soon as well. I think Osimo is definitely a player that could do it. Also, pretty interesting that him and Riddles are the only Shoto player on this list, but just considering how many good Shotos there are, you have T as well as, technically a Shoto's player with that secondary Kazuya, but, we're going to view him more as that Pac-Man. Just for, the main profile, it is going to be Osimo and Riddles. And then finally, at 16th, you have Zachary. Now, Zachary is pretty tough to judge because his only performance that we, really care about that's super good is Kagaribi. Kagaribi was really, really good, had an amazing losers run there. But aside from that, he hasn't done a ton, so I don't think he should be this high. Do I not think he's a top 16 player? No, not at all. He definitely is of that caliber. I mean, I saw the losers run with Pit. It's kind of hard to deny it at this point. He just doesn't quite have the results that some other players do, but he's a decent end to the year as well, has done well to a couple regionals. He's won a couple regionals, so that's definitely something to consider. Again, when there hasn't been as many majors, though, regionals are going to weigh much, much more, so that's probably something that's going to keep him this high. I really hope we can see more Zachary, because I just want to see if he keeps playing that Pit at that super top level and how he finds success with it. At 15th, you have Onan, and this is also something that's been fairly quiet this year. We've only seen one major performance from them at Let's Make Big Boost, where they didn't do amazing. They didn't do, super terrible, but it was just kind of a meh performance. And outside of that, we have not seen a major event from them this year. But they do have a pretty strong end to 2022 as well, so that's where they're going to be getting a lot of their points, as well as just been doing really well at regionals. Onan is definitely someone that you can't forget about. He is still in contention for that top 10 caliber player spot. He is incredible. We just haven't really seen him. Really excited to see him at Battle BC again. A lot of storylines are going to matter a ton at Battle BC because we're going to be seeing a lot of players that we haven't seen in a while, as well as that number one spot being more contentious than ever. So hyped to see Onan there. You have Glutony as well, has not missed a top 8 at a major this year. Only real blemish on his record is he's been struggling a bit in Europe, but he's been kind of doing that for a while now. And struggling in Europe for him is he gets third, losing to Bloom, who's again a top 10 player pretty much at this point, and Lugi or Siski, just the best of the best in EU. So nothing too bad from him there. Again, he doesn't have a top 3 at a major yet this year, but he's definitely going to get one because he is Glutony. You have Shutone at 13th. He has a nice win at Kowloon 5. Aside from that, though, nothing super crazy. Actually, he had a really good Umabora at the start of the year, but he did have a couple underperformances at Kagaribi and Meisuma, which is unusual for Shutone. He's usually Mr. Consistency, never misses the top 8, doesn't quite get the win all the time, but he's always at least in contention for it. At least he already has his win this year, and the consistency issues, they seem a little bit behind him, though he did massively underperform at Gen 1.1, but that was a regional, so I'm going to let it slide. At 12th place, you have Kurama with, again, a bit of a rough start to the year. Didn't do amazing at Genesis, didn't do amazing at Collision, but he did really, really well at Summit, as well as doing good at Major Upset, and he had a nice main stage as well to end up the year. So Kurama had a really strong end to 2022, and then having a really good last couple months, which are going to be bringing up a lot. And then you have Mia, the hardest player in the world to rank, in my opinion. It's either him or Bloom, just because of how inconsistent he's been. His start of the year, really, really bad. Has 2 burnout tournaments. I mean, his Umaboro wasn't the end of the world, but the Kagaribi was pretty rough, and then he wins Meisuma, which is obviously a big deal. He wins Tsubigeki. He gets second at Kaon. After that really bad performance at Kagaribi, it's been nothing but golds and silvers for Mia. He has been looking incredibly clean, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's top 10 in a couple more months. And our first player in the top 10 is going to be Mudes. Now, Mudes' record is pretty much squeaky clean. The only really bad thing on his record is going to be LSI, but that's going to be gone from this ranking pretty soon, if it's not gone already. And aside from that, it is only top 8s and amazing placements. He does have a miss at Summit where he gets 9th place, but also he got wins on Nader, U, Riddles, and Spargo, so it's not really that bad of a tournament. We obviously know how amazing his Genesis run was, just especially because he was seated fairly low, so he just had to play a gauntlet of top players, and he got through them all, even got a set win on Leo, Akala, Gluto, Meister, Light. He got so many amazing wins along the way, so those are definitely going to be helping Mudes out, as well as him doing pretty well at some regional events. You have T another player we haven't seen a ton from, but what we have seen, they've been pretty good. He has a really strong Umabora where he gets second place there. He just got second at a Japanese regional. He did have a pretty unfortunate Meisuma, and that's really all we've seen from him. He did have a pretty good end to 2022, though. Like, his 2022 year was pretty much flawless, aside from main stage, which was in that period, but even that was only like a 13th or a 9th. I can't really remember right now. I think it was 13th, but T is just a consistent player. He's insane. I will say I haven't been seeing as much Kazuya as of late, but also I just haven't been seeing as much T, so maybe it's like fading away from my mind. I know he did use it at the regional, not to great success versus Aqua, because that guy in the Ditto is insane, but T, obviously an amazing player, definitely deserving of that top 10 spot. Then you have Riddles at 8. His big win's going to be from Collision, but even outside of Collision, he has a really good summit, getting a couple good wins along the way. I'd say most notably Sparko and Mkleo, which is like crazy that he got both of those and still got 9th. And then he also has a top 8 at Let's Make Big Moves. He won Frosty Fausting. He got top 8 at Major Upset, 3rd place there. His only real blemish is going to be Genesis, but a lot of people in this top 8 or in this top 25 didn't have a great Genesis, so you can't hold it against him too much. Riddles is, again, definitely deserving of that spot. That Collision one's going to be helping out a lot, as well as having 2 Mkleo wins. And you have Proto Bonham at 7, another player that we haven't really seen a ton from recently. I think Proto Bonham's really, the only tournament that we really care about, that we can even really talk about, is Summit, and his Summit was really good. He got wins on Tweak, he got wins on Big D, he got wins on Aaron, he got wins on Riddles. He beat a bunch of really prominent players, and those are all like top 25 caliber players. I will say the only player that's top 25 in the world right now, like he is top 25, is Big D, that isn't on this list. I think it's because his 2022 wasn't amazing, but Big D definitely a top 25 player. I think Cosmos has an argument for it as well. We'll go more into that at the end of the video, but Proto Bonham, I think he's definitely a caliber player of top 5, top 7 area. I don't think he quite has the results right now, but if you want to keep him up here just because he's so good, then you know what? I'll let it slide for Proto Bonham. And finally, you have Sonics at 6, which I just 100% agree with. Sonics is so close into breaking into that 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse area, which is obviously Tweak, Leo, Aquila, and Spargo. He is incredible. He can beat literally anyone in the world. The only one that's giving him consistent trouble right now is Light, and that can be like a somewhat tough matchup for Sonic, and what I mean by that is even, but he can definitely figure it out. All the sets are very close. Sonic just rolls people sometimes. Sonic has some of the most steamroll games I've ever seen in Smash, which is kind of funny because, he is like the campy player, but Sonic is incredible, 100% deserving of that top 6 spot, and he's probably going to win a major this year pretty soon. And we have our top 5, and I'm sure I spoiled it in the thumbnail, but at 5th we have Light, 4th we have Leo, 3rd Tweak, 2nd Spargo, and 1st Aquila. Now, Light at 5th, 100% agree with. That's where I put him. I think that's where most people put him in the ranking. He's kind of the divider beside the Big 4 into everyone else. Not saying he's not even close to the Big 4, though, because he is incredibly close. He's right on that doorstop. He has a level up Expo Major win this year, as well as a really good Genesis, really good Let's Make Big Moves. Unfortunately, did not go to Summit, and then he had an okay Collision getting 9th place there again. Crazy that that's okay getting 9th place at a Super Major, but that's how amazing he is. He has wins on players like Tweak, Sonic, Spargo. Like, he has so many amazing wins, and he's going to continue to get them because he is unbelievable. But this is the top 4. This is juicy because I think all these players are interchangeable. Any single order you have them in, I think it's fine. Leo at 4th, though, it's pretty crazy to see. But if you look at the most recent results, it makes sense. He's a good Genesis. He overperforms all of these players at Genesis. He underperforms Tweak and Spargo at Collision, not by a lot. He underperforms Tweak by a lot at Summit, but not Spargo. He loses to Spargo at Major Upset. Let's Make Big Moves. He underperforms to Tweak and Spargo. And then even before that, main stage, you have Tweak and Spargo in 2nd. You have Scuffle World Tour, Tweak and Spargo in 2nd. Leo does have LSI, which I think it is in this ranking, which is definitely holding him up here. But once LSI falls out, all he really has against these players is Genesis, and Genesis is crazy. Like, Genesis is really, really good. Like, that'll keep him in the top 10 alone for, like, a couple more months. But if he doesn't start putting up some really stellar performances soon, he is probably going to fall out of this top 5 range, which is pretty crazy. But last weekend, we did see a major upset performance from him, which was really strong, got 2nd place there. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, Leo fans. I'm just spreading copium into the world that he'll finally be dethroned. He won't be. Leo is still ridiculous, still definitely top 4 in the world right now. Tweak and Spargo, you could also sing their praises for days. They have multiple major wins under the belt within the time period. They both have major wins this year. They both have wins on essentially everyone in this top 5. But let's talk about number 1 being Aquila. And the reason that I waited so long for this video is because I was waiting for Aquila to be number 1. So I looked right because I think that is true. His results lately have been incredible, especially with that Summit win and the wins that he got at Summit. Kind of nailed the coffin. It's like he is able to beat this top NA talent. He got a bunch of wins. That Leo one, I think, being the most notable one. He doesn't have his run back yet on Spargo, but that could be a main decider for number 1 in the world. If we see that at Battle of BC, if we see that at Kagaribi, there's a lot that's going to be going down at Kagaribi as well. That's another P-tier event that could be bigger than Genesis. So if Aquila and Spargo win Genesis or Tweak or Leo, I don't think they're going, but if they surprise, they go, If they win that tournament, then you probably are number 1 of the world. And I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, this is a super cool ranking. Ether stuff will be down below. Be sure to check them out. They do weekly updates to this. If you just are curious and want to see how it's going, then again, that'll all be down below. Thank you guys for everything. Sport's been absolutely unreal lately. And the top 25 in this game right now is crazy. Again, there's like 15 other players that I could slot into the top 25 and no one would bat an eye. The only one I have like a really big problem with is Big D. I definitely think Big D is a top 25 player, but you have Salt 1 that could be in here. You have Zomba that could be in here. I think Neo's been doing really well. Now's been doing really well. There's so many amazing players that could definitely be slotted in the slots because the level of play right now is incredibly close, but I'm getting sidetracked. Thank you guys for everything. Sport's been absolutely unreal, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.